They say we live in a just world, where being good is enough and everything falls into place. That's a lie. Machiavelli had already revealed centuries ago what the elite always knew. Real power is not built with ideals, but with strategy. Politics guided by reality was never meant for everyone because it requires courage to face truths most prefer to ignore. It's uncomfortable to admit that the end often justifies the means, but it's precisely this perception that separates those who govern from those who are governed. While many spend their lives trying to please, few understand that it's better to be feared than loved, as long as one knows how to avoid being hated. Now think, how many times have you been deceived by trusting too much? How many doors have closed because you believed that boundless kindness was a shield? The truth is that the world rewards those who know how to harness virtù and fortuna, who master the calculated use of force, and above all, who learn to read true human nature. That's why so few manage to advance in this game. Most are still trapped in illusions, while strategists have already learned to don the appearance of virtue and use silence as a weapon. This power isn't for everyone because it requires something brutal, abandoning comfortable naivete and accepting constant adaptation as the law. You'll realize along this journey that each Machiavellian lesson is a blade, and you can use it to cut the chains that bind you, or injure yourself trying to play with it. The secret the elite have always knew why few are ready for real power. The elite has always understood something the rest of the population rarely dares to question. Real power isn't distributed, it's conquered. Machiavelli already warned that politics guided by reality, not ideals, is the only way to stay on top. While many are still distracted by speeches of hope, true strategists silently shape scenarios to their advantage. It's like a chessboard. The masses play checkers, believing each move is simple and predictable, but those who master the real game can already see 10 squares ahead. Few are ready for this kind of responsibility because it demands letting go of illusions. It demands accepting that the end justifies the means when it comes to survival. The curious thing is that, contrary to popular belief, this secret has never been hidden. It has always been in books, in the biographies of great leaders, and even in the stories we've heard since childhood. But most prefer to ignore it because it's more comfortable to believe the world is just. Real power isn't just authority. It's above all discipline and clarity about human nature. When Machiavelli said it's better to be feared than loved, he wasn't talking about gratuitous cruelty, but about understanding that solid respect is born of strategic fear. Those who strive to please discover too soon that boundless kindness becomes a trap. Consider contemporary politics, for example. How many leaders have fallen because they tried to be too popular? They confused applause with loyalty. Those who knew how to balance virtù and fortuna, skill and opportunity, remained steadfast even amidst chaos. Consider entrepreneurs who thrived amid crises. While some stagnate, others used constant adaptability to transform adversity into an opportunity for dominance. The elite's secret is simple to state, but difficult to apply. Act based on decisions grounded in real human nature, not idealistic promises. This is the point at which many give up. The idea of accepting that the appearance of virtue matters more than the virtue itself sounds like betraying personal principles. But therein lies the difference between those who observe the game and those who control it. Those who seek only to appear good hide behind naivete. Those who understand the importance of appearance know that it is merely a necessary mask to open doors. Thus, the elite do not cling to the childish desire to be understood or loved, but rather focus on avoiding being hated, which guarantees room to maneuver without excessive noise. Think about your own life. How many times have you been ignored for insisting on pleasing when a firm stance would have generated respect? Few are willing to pay the price for taking this stance. And that is precisely why only a few manage to advance to the next layer of this power game, where kindness, instead of a shield, can become a sweet and dangerous trap. The sweet trap of kindness. Kindness, when used without measure, is like honey, sweet to the palate but sticky and dangerous when overused. Machiavelli observed that many rulers fell precisely because they confused compassion with weakness. Politics guided by reality shows that while being seen as good brings immediate applause, excess opens the door to manipulation. Those who strive too hard to be loved risk becoming hostages to others' approval. Think, for example, of that person at work who accepts all the extra tasks to be liked. What happens? They are not respected, only exploited. The end justifies the means when we understand that strategic kindness must have clear limits. Without limits, it ceases to be a virtue and becomes submission. This is where we realize naive kindness does not protect, it hands its sword to the enemy. Interestingly, those who rely solely on this appearance of virtue often believe they are building bridges, when in reality they are slowly being led to the abyss. Being too nice is seen as predictable, and excessive predictability is a death sentence in the power game. This is why the elite prefer a balance between virtù and fortuna. They know when to show generosity and when to build walls. In practical life, this means learning to say no without guilt, setting limits without fear, and even cutting ties when necessary. Avoiding being hated doesn't mean giving in to everything. On the contrary, it often requires resolutely refusing. Selective kindness breeds respect, while unrestricted kindness breeds contempt. This is the sweet trap, the sugar that slowly poisons, while everyone applauds your smile. Kindness, therefore, is not discarded, but dosed like strong medicine. Machiavelli did not advocate cruelty, but warned against the naivete of relying solely on ideals. The secret is the calculated use of symbolic force, showing that you are capable of being firm when necessary and generous when convenient. Just as a king who rewards his loyal soldiers but severely punishes traitors, you must build your reputation as someone who knows how to recognize but also knows how to cut. Ultimately, the game is about sending the right message. Being kind, yes, but never predictable. Compassionate, but never fragile. This lesson may sound harsh, but it is precisely this that opens the way for the understanding that it is not always luck, fortune, that dictates the course, but rather the conscious skill, virtù, in balancing gentleness and harshness. Virtue versus fortune. Since the time of Machiavelli, there has been a silent battle between two forces that shape destinies: virtù and fortuna. Virtù is the skill, the discipline, and the courage to act even in the face of chaos. Fortuna is chance, the luck that blows like the wind, changing course without warning. Many are mistaken in believing that relying on fortune is enough, but the strategist knows that real power comes from virtù. Consider a practical example. How many entrepreneurs bet on promising ideas and relied solely on market luck? Most have disappeared. Those who built their own loyal armies, solid teams prepared to face crises, have transformed instability into a springboard. Politics guided by reality doesn't wait for chance. It shapes scenarios, understanding that fortune favors only those who are ready to act. The interplay between virtù and fortune reveals itself in small, daily choices. A person who places all their faith in luck acts like someone who trusts a storm won't knock down their house, but never bothers to reinforce the foundations. Those who invest in virtù, on the other hand, act like architects. They build firm pillars, knowing that the winds change. The end justifies the means when the decision is to protect what they have built with effort. A clear example is the world of politics. How many leaders rose to power by the luck of a favorable context, but quickly fell because they were unprepared? Virtue is what keeps a ruler steadfast even when fortune turns against them. This is why Machiavelli taught that luck can open doors, but only virtue guarantees that you won't be thrown out the same door. In practical life, this means cultivating constant adaptability. If fortune is like a river that overflows, virtue is the ability to build dams and redirect the current. And here's the secret few apply. You don't have to choose between one or the other. You need to learn to master both. This requires training, discipline, and above all, clarity about true human nature. Think of someone who gets a promotion at work only because a colleague gave up the position, fortune. If they're not prepared to take on the position, they'll be swallowed up by the responsibilities. But if they have virtue, they'll transform the opportunity into mastery. It's this combination that separates the average from the extraordinary. And precisely for this reason, to avoid being swallowed up by the fluctuations of fortune, it's necessary to learn an even more delicate art, that of being feared without ever becoming hated. The art of being feared. Without being hated, Machiavelli got straight to the point. It's better to be feared than loved, as long as you know how to avoid being hated. Here's the key few understand. Fear breeds respect, but hatred breeds conspiracy. Politics, guided by reality, shows that a leader who inspires strategic fear keeps his own loyal armies alert and disciplined, while one who merely tries to please becomes vulnerable to betrayal. In real life, this applies to the boss who maintains clear standards and demands results. He may not be loved, but he is respected, unlike the manager who tries to be everyone's friend and ends up seen as weak. The secret is to convey the message that force is available, but not used gratuitously. Those who master this art know how to balance firmness with justice, creating solid authority without leaving room for revolt. The most common mistake is to confuse fear with tyranny. The tyrant generates irrational fear, and this fear quickly turns into hatred. The strategist, on the other hand, creates calculated fear, demonstrating that his word is law because it is based on decisions based on real human nature. It's like the teacher who doesn't need to shout to maintain silence. His firm presence is enough to establish order. This calculated use of force isn't about violence, but about consistency. For example, in the business world, an entrepreneur who maintains clear rules and keeps his promises commands natural respect. He doesn't need to threaten because everyone knows his decisions are firm. This is where virtue trumps fortune. While luck can place someone in a leadership position, only the ability to balance fear and respect keeps that leadership standing. Those who understand this art learn the importance of the appearance of virtue as a compliment. It's not enough to be feared. One must appear fair, balanced, and even generous at times. This appearance acts as a buffer that prevents fear from slipping into hatred. Think of historical figures who were respected precisely because they combined rigor with occasional gestures of kindness. It's like a father who is firm in his rules but knows how to recognize and reward obedience. The son fears him but also respects him because he sees justice in his decisions. This balance creates stability and strengthens the public image. The elite have always known this, which is why they rarely expose themselves gratuitously. But for this balance to work, it's necessary to understand an even more sophisticated game, that of the appearance of virtue, where what counts is not being, but appearing. The game of the appearance of virtue, Machiavelli made it clear. It's not necessary to be virtuous, but it is essential to appear virtuous. Politics guided by reality shows that, in practice, the appearance of virtue acts as a shield against judgment and a key to open doors. This is what happens to leaders who cultivate an image of honesty, even if, behind the scenes, they act with cold calculation. They know that the masses don't see the essence, but the signs. If someone appears fair, generous, and upright, they gain support and trust. It's like in the job market. A professional who maintains impeccable posture, speaks calmly, and exudes confidence tends to be promoted before one who is competent but doesn't know how to project their image. Appearance, in this game, is worth more than substance. This doesn't mean that essence doesn't matter, but rather that the majority lacks access to it. Machiavelli understood that decisions based on true human nature must consider perceptions, not facts. If the crowd believes someone is virtuous, they act as if they were, and that's enough to consolidate power. The mistake many make is thinking that being truly good is enough to be recognized. It doesn't work that way. How many times have you seen people who were wronged, who worked hard, but were ignored because they didn't know how to communicate their virtue? Meanwhile, others who mastered the art of appearance were celebrated as models of success. The elite learned to use this game as a strategic mask. They may even use force, but they always don the guise of virtue before the public. This game can be practiced simply in everyday life. For example, in a difficult negotiation, maintaining calm and a calm tone conveys an image of self-control, even if you're on fire inside. This appearance of virtue guarantees trust from the other side and strengthens your position. In the political arena, how many speeches resort to words like justice, peace, and progress? It doesn't matter if the underlying reality is different. What matters is that the masses believe what they see and hear. The end justifies the means, because in the end, appearance works as a tool to maintain order and gain ground. But here's the subtlety. Sometimes, it's not what you say that builds your image, but what you don't say. And at that point, silence begins to reveal its power as an invisible weapon. Silence as a weapon. Silence is one of the most underrated tools of power. Machiavelli already intuited that words often weaken, while their absence strengthens. Politics guided by reality teaches that talking too much opens up loopholes, exposes intentions, and provides ammunition to enemies. Silence, on the other hand, creates mystery, instills respect, and places others in a position of doubt. Think of a meeting. The individual who remains silent and observes is often more feared than the one who constantly spouts opinions. Silence makes each word spoken valuable, almost a decree. This skill creates an aura of authority, and in some cases, more impact than fiery speeches. After all, whoever controls silence also controls the pace of the game. In practical life, silence can be used strategically in negotiations, conflicts, or even personal relationships. Those who speak less tend to listen more, and those who listen more gather valuable information. The end justifies the means when the decision to remain silent serves to gain an advantage. A classic example: in political debates, candidates who avoid immediate responses and calculate the right moment to speak end up shaping the public's perception of them as wise and prudent. This calculated use of silent force isn't limited to major scenarios. Even in everyday life, when someone attacks you with criticism, responding calmly or simply not responding generates greater discomfort than 1,000 excuses. Machiavelli knew that true human nature fears what it cannot decipher, and silence is precisely the veil that protects hidden intentions. There's another fascinating point. Silence not only protects, but can also be an offensive weapon. It disarms, pressures, creates a void that forces the other person to expose themselves. In an interrogation, silence is often what leads someone to confess, because the lack of reaction is unbearable. In the corporate world, a manager who remains silent after hearing a proposal forces a subordinate to fill the void, revealing insecurities. This is virtue in action, the ability to transform absence into a dominant presence. And herein lies the subtle lesson. You don't need to shout to be heard, nor bare your teeth to be feared. Silence, well applied, is sharper than any sword. But if it protects and attacks at the same time, the inevitable question arises, what happens to those who, blinded by naivete, fail to realize the cost of ignoring such weapons? The cost of naivety. Naivety is perhaps the greatest enemy of those who wish to walk among the powerful. Machiavelli warned that decisions based solely on ideals, without considering real human nature, are invitations to ruin. Politics guided by reality shows that those who believe in promises without measuring hidden intentions end up becoming easy prey. The world is not fertile ground for innocence, but for strategy. Think, for example, of people who blindly trust business partners without investigating contracts, numbers, or intentions. The result is almost always the same: loss of resources, trust, and often reputation. The naive believe that good will always prevail. The strategist knows that good only prevails when defended with calculation and firmness. In practice, naivete is costly because it opens the door to subtle manipulation. How many have been emotionally exploited simply because they couldn't say no? How many have accepted low-paying jobs, believing they would be recognized later? Machiavelli would say these people confused virtue with luck, hoping fortune would solve what skill couldn't. It's like planting seeds in rocky soil and expecting a bountiful harvest. The end justifies the means when someone decides to protect their energy and resources, even if it means disappointing others' expectations. The price of not doing so is high: wasted time, emotional exhaustion, and even loss of identity. The naive become invisible because, in their eagerness to please, they cease to be respected. The curious thing is that naivete can disguise itself as kindness or even blind trust in justice. But in the game of power, justice isn't automatic, it's constructed. Those who survive aren't the purest, but those who learn to balance their appearance of virtue with a readiness to use force when necessary. The naive expect others to be loyal without ever testing that loyalty. The strategist knows that loyal armies are built through discipline, rewards, and vigilance. This difference is what separates the protected from the sacrificed. And here comes the turning point. To escape the price of naivete, one must accept that at certain times, only the calculated use of force can guarantee respect and survival. The calculated use of force. Few understand that force, when misused, is like uncontrolled fire. It destroys both the enemy and the one who lights it. Machiavelli taught that power lies not in using force at every moment, but in doing so calculatedly when truly necessary. Politics guided by reality makes it clear that gratuitous violence breeds hatred, and hatred breeds revolt. But force applied at the right time inspires respect and order. Consider a ruler who exemplarily punishes a traitor. It's not cruelty, it's a message. Just as in the corporate world, when a leader makes a firm decision in the face of a serious failure, they don't seek to humiliate, but to demonstrate that discipline and loyalty are not optional. The secret is that the fear generated by well-applied force prevents the need to use it repeatedly. This principle works in any sphere of life. A parent who never sets limits on their children raises unprepared adults. One who uses symbolic force, clear rules, firm consequences, builds respect. The end justifies the means when harsh measures preserve the greater order. Consider the business world. Firing someone who undermines the team is not cruelty, but protection of the collective. The calculated use of force ensures that one's own loyal armies remain united, with no room for indiscipline. This logic also applies to personal relationships. When you don't set clear boundaries, you end up opening the door for abuse. Unlike the naive who trusts in the goodwill of others, the strategist knows that true human nature responds better to clarity than permissiveness. This is where virtue trumps fortune. Relying on luck to prevent anyone from overstepping their bounds is naive. Using symbolic force in a calculated way is virtue in action. The great secret lies in using less, but with surgical precision. A practical example. In a negotiation, sometimes a long pause, a silence charged with firmness, is enough to command respect without raising one's voice. This is the use of invisible force, which does not harm, but controls. Machiavelli knew that those who know how to apply this measure do not need to act constantly, as their reputation is responsible for keeping others in line. However, even this calculated discipline does not eliminate risks, because on the chessboard of power there is a treacherous piece that always lurks in the shadows: betrayal as political currency. Betrayal as political currency. As bitter as it may be, the truth is that betrayal has always been part of the game of power. Machiavelli observed that alliances are rarely eternal. They last as long as there is interest. Politics guided by reality shows that blindly trusting promises is paving the way for ruin. Betrayal, in this scenario, functions as political currency. It is used to bargain, to climb the ladder, and even to survive. Just look at history. How many kingdoms were toppled not by sworn enemies, but by allies who switched sides at the decisive moment? The same happens today, in businesses, in families, and even in friendships. The end justifies the means for those who see the opportunity and switch sides to secure an advantage, even if, in the eyes of common morality, this seems reprehensible. The mistake is to be shocked by betrayal as if it were the exception, when in fact it is the rule. True human nature is driven by the pursuit of advantage and self-preservation. This is why loyal armies are so valued. You'll never have complete control over everyone, but you can reduce the risk by creating bonds of interest, not just affection. Those who act only for the appearance of virtue make themselves vulnerable because they confuse friendship with loyalty. The elite have always known that ultimately it is convenience that defines which side someone remains on. Want a current example? Politicians who switch parties according to the circumstances. It's not just opportunism, it's survival on the chessboard. Knowing that betrayal is inevitable doesn't mean passively accepting it, but anticipating it and, in some cases, using it to your advantage. The strategist understands that the traitor often only reveals what was already hidden. By preparing, they transform the pain of betrayal into fuel to strengthen their position. Think of the businessman who is abandoned by a disloyal partner. Instead of playing the victim, they take the opportunity to rebuild the company with whom they are truly aligned. This calculated use of psychological strength turns loss into leverage. Machiavelli would say that the greatest mistake is not being betrayed, but not expecting it. And precisely for this reason, those who wish to survive must master one final law of power: constant adaptation, the only strategy that stands the test of time. The law of constant adaptation. Paragraph 1. If there's one immutable rule in the game of power, it's this: nothing stays the same for long. Machiavelli warned that even the strongest rulers fall when they refuse to change with the times. Politics guided by reality requires constant adaptability, because contexts shift, alliances dissolve, fortunes shift, and even public perception shifts. The end justifies the means when change becomes the only way to survive. Consider the great empires of history. Rome, for example, expanded because it knew how to adapt its military and administrative strategy to each conquered territory. But when it lost the ability to reinvent itself, it began to crumble. The same goes for companies, leaders, and even ordinary people who insist on living as if the world were static. Adapting isn't synonymous with weakness, but with virtue. It's the ability to recognize when a strategy no longer works and quickly create new solutions. Think of leaders who thrived in economic crises. They didn't wait for fortune to turn in their favor. but instead adjusted their own loyal armies to the new conditions, cutting back on excesses and exploring new opportunities. Those who remained paralyzed, stuck in old habits, were swallowed up. Constant adaptability acts like invisible armor. It protects against betrayal, failure, and even the ravages of time. After all, those who remain the same become predictable. And predictability in the game of power is an invitation to defeat. In everyday life, this law can be applied to simple actions. Learning new skills, anticipating market changes, observing social patterns, and adjusting behaviors are examples of strategic adaptation. Machiavelli knew that decisions based on real human nature only make sense when combined with flexibility. Think of someone at work who notices the arrival of new technologies. The naive person resists, hoping everything will return to normal. The strategist, on the other hand, anticipates, studies, and turns change into an advantage. It is this mindset that separates those who survive from those who disappear. And herein lies the final lesson. Power is not something achieved once and for all. It is a dynamic state, maintained only by those who accept that the only certainty is change. Now that you've explored each layer of this knowledge, the inevitable question is, what will you do with it? Will you continue believing in fragile ideals, hoping that luck, fortune, will solve your problems? Or will you embrace virtue, choosing decisions based on true human nature, even when they require firmness? Machiavelli didn't speak to cowards. He spoke to those who had the courage to look at reality without filters. And if you've come this far, it's because some part of you has already realized that this power isn't for everyone, but it can be for you. Think about it. How many times have you been ignored for trying to please? How many times have you been hurt by trusting someone who didn't deserve it? How many opportunities have you missed by failing to understand that sometimes the end justifies the means? Life will continue to test your ingenuity until you choose the discipline of constant adaptation, the balance between fear and respect, and the calculated use of force. The question isn't whether you'll play, but whether you'll play as a piece or as a strategist. So before you leave, I leave you with a direct invitation. If this content opened your eyes, if any truth cut deep within you, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Here, each video is a blow against illusion and a weapon for those who want to build true power. And tell me in the comments, which of these lessons have you already realized in practice was missing in your life? Because perhaps the first step to stopping being manipulated is finally writing your own strategy.